We've been in the on the booking page, been offering office hours, and then I was offering what was called a live stream overtime session. I don't know if any of you have joined us for those in the past. And as part of the New Year's resolution, I thought, okay, well, what can we do that's a little more has a better rhythm to it, and doesn't require two times a week instead of one time a week. And so we have rebranded the office hour and what was used to be called live stream overtime session into what now I'm calling the weekly Q&A jam session. That was from somebody's suggestion. That sounded pretty decent. And so I'll be doing this once a week. We also have started a book club. So an hour from now, we're doing our monthly book club. Our first reading was She Wolves. I'm trying to pick books that are appropriate to the securities industry, as well as maybe have some testable content for us. And she was about legendary trailblazers, ladies in the securities industry when there wasn't many ladies, like the famous that I know of is Muriel Siebert. You just asked me, and what a great introduction that is about Deirdre. Deirdre is a lady in the securities industry. Now we go back to the early 80s, and Deirdre would tell me that she gets asked things in class that I just can't even comprehend somebody daring to ask me. So I've always thought I've always been a believer in this book and the challenges that some of the ladies in the securities industry have faced. Now we're much more diversified than we were, in those days. So, and Deirdre is certainly one of those she wolves trendsetters and getting ladies into the business and doing well in our business. All kinds of, horror stories of, ladies doing the same job and getting less. But anyways, that's our reading for this month. Who knows what we'll do next month? You have any recommendations? Just let me know. All right, no questions. I don't see anything in the chat. Nobody has anything they want to talk about?
I'm
Not necessary. I mean, I'm perfectly okay if some jam sessions we decide not to put on the show.
To be frank, I joined this session simply because on the 14th I was on your Tuesday call and
Uh,
won the free session, so I wanted to take advantage of it.
oh yeah,
I
yeah, but free. We do. There's not many things on this booking page that are free. The
well,
things
I
that
just
are free are usually on the YouTube channel. This is an exception. This is free, and like I say, I have no problem with people taking advantage of the free stuff on the booking page. The two things that are free are the jam sessions and the book club. And then free stuff always takes a backseat to paid stuff. So if some right now, 5 minutes before Thomas, if somebody would have called and said, Dean, can you squeeze me in for a $750 shared screen test? I would have said yes, and I would reschedule this. So,
I would have too, so
yeah, they
can't blame
get bumped every now and again. They get bumped. Any questions? Joy, Thomas, Jillian, Joy, Kaylee, any questions?
I got a question, Dean.
Yeah. What do you got?
So unfortunately, just took the 66, missed
Ugh,
it for the second time
ugh,
by three. I got a 70.
ugh. Oh, that hurts. I find those high scores sometimes more exasperating. High, misses more exasperating than you completely blew it. What'd you get the first time?
I got a 66, so not great. And everything was on pace, but my laws and regulations, and kind of the same thing today. I only gained 2 more points, and I focused most of my studies on the laws and regs,
Hmm.
but I didn't pick up the points I thought I was going to.
Yeah, and what's the printout? Where did you pick up the points? You picked up some points, right? Because you said what, 66 the first time? What was the first score?
Yeah, 66 first time and then 70 this time.
Yeah, so you did pick up some points. So I mean, if we do that again, we should be okay. Let me just comment on laws and regulations. I prefer that we would say law and registrations rather than regulations. Now, I know that the test specifications published by NASA and all test vendors follow that same titling, laws and regulations, but that's really laws and registrations. How do we register a broker dealer? How do we register agents of broker dealers? How do we register a security? How do we register an investment advisor or investment advisor rep? Of the 45 questions, that's about 20 of them. And most of it,
Right.
I had a guy get in the weeds on securities registration. I said, that's not where the action is there. The action is on the investment advisor, investment rep side. Now, the other 25 questions are disclosures. And again, the test specifications call it, and the template from NASA calls it unethical business practices. And what drives me nuts is test prep vendors call it ethical business practices, and that's not what you're tested on. You're not tested on recognizing ethical business practices. That comes with like disclosures. What you're being tested on is unethical business practices. Now, you got to give yourself some grace. There's quite a few people that go 2-0 and then they run into the 66 or the 65 and have a kind of a little bit of misfortune. I don't think there's anything to suggest that next time you go into cave this way, this dragon, that you will get them. We want to pick up another 4 points, but what we want to give thought to is, okay, what can we do different? My experience has been that when people get a score like yours twice, that the issue is not knowledge deficit. It's some other test taking thing. What I mean by test taking thing is maybe it's changing answers, maybe it's not having too many anxiety. It's some other thing. It's not that you didn't put in the work. It's not that you weren't dedicated, disciplined, and organized. And that's why, Joy, most firms with those scores know that. And that's why they're going to give you the third time. Now, I don't want to send out negative vibes, but as you know, if you miss it this third time, it's going to be a problem, right?
Yeah.
Third time, it's a 6-month wait. Now, as a backup plan, I don't believe in this as your plan A, but as a plan B, I would tell you a 63, 65. You said it's a 66 you're taking, right?
Yep.
Is the equivalent of a 66. And I truly believe this, Joy, and it doesn't, it depends on your firm, but I think it does no harm, no foul. I bet you could probably pass a 63 and a 65 with that kind of a score, and you wouldn't have the 30-day wait period. So if you feel comfortable, you know what I would suggest, go get the test specifications from NASA, right? They print 2 things on the 66, a study guide and test specifications. You should do this anyways while their herd is fresh and take a little intellectual inventory. Go through that and see if you can isolate even further what part of law and registrations, regulations are problematic. But the other reason I want you to print out that PDF is I also want you to print out the 63 PDF and the 65 and just look that over. And some of that you'll see that there's a lot of overlap. And so I would suggest that as a plan B, either right away while this stuff is fresh. I think you said this misfortune happened today.
Yep. Today.
So that while the herd is fresh, do what I'm suggesting on the debrief. If you don't want to do the plan B thing, 63, 65 in the near future, like a week, then just do your debrief, your intellectual inventory with yourself using that document, and then put it away. And about, refresh, reset, 3-4 days, pick it back up again. Now, I don't say this very often, but again, when we have people who miss twice with high scores, the other thing that we can tell you is it's going to be good in your future. It's not good in the present, but it can be that you're just too on top of it. And instead of taking the test is taking you. You're not kind of letting it come to you, and you're turning, aim and shoot, point and click questions into judgment questions that aren't there. I've had that happen where somebody gave me a beautiful, intellectually coherent answer, but nowhere was any of that in this question. I go, where is that in this question? And I go, what if they meant? I go, they don't. If they meant that, they would say that. So that would be my recommendation. While the herd is fresh, do an intellectual inventory with yourself using that test specification. Plus means you think you got it. 0 means you think you're at par. Minus means, you need some work. And counterintuitive, but we're hoping there is some minuses, because if there are no minuses that you think you're below par, well, then again, it just confirms it's not a knowledge deficit problem, right? That it's some other kind of a variable there. And then consider the 63, 65, maybe go to your firm and do that. It's an aggressive move. I had a guy, he had failed it. We were having this conversation, and I really did. And I believe it. I wouldn't, tell you what I don't believe. I could be wrong. So, you're the one ultimately has to decide on how to best to get through your testing journey. But anyways, he had failed it on a Friday, and a Monday he was able to get in and take a 63, 65. I think you should come clean immediately with the people who are, your accountability partners you're working with, because, you don't want to stew it and you want to be confident I'm going to get it next time. Anyways, he took the 63, 65, and he said he told his manager, okay, what do you want first, the good news or the bad news? Bad news is I missed my mark. Now, the other thing that's hard, But I would tell all of you, don't get your self-esteem too wrapped up in these tests because it has nothing to do with your long-term success in our industry. My best broker took his test more than once, a few times. It took him to get them all done. And he used to go out and say, if anybody knows this stuff, it's me. I had to take this damn test 5 times. People who with you do so because they like you and they trust you, not that you can pass a test. Now we don't give scores when you passed away, but when we did give scores when you were passed, and I'm not being facetious here, if you got over 90 one of these exams, I say, Joey, I think I should fire you right now. And you'd say, why? I said, well, how am I going to supervise you if you're smarter than me? You're always going to be one step ahead of me. And I said, secondly, I found that people get over 90, all they've proven is they're big a jerk as the person who wrote the test. I'm not so sure how that's going to bode well for us spending a lot of time together in the office and finding clients. And so I wouldn't get too much of your self-esteem wrapped up. All right, let's see what else we got here. What does your cram sheet look like? Well, Thomas, I think a cram sheet on a NASA exam, I think is very problematic. I mean, on a 7, I like a data dump sheet. I call it a data dump. Matrix, teeter totters, blobs, slobs over bliss. NASA exams are a little tougher to come up with a data dump sheet. Now, did anybody join me last night for our live stream?
I did.
And did you take Brian up on his offer of what he calls his cheat sheet?
Yeah, I had it bought before.
Okay, so Thomas, if you're taking, what exam are you taking, Thomas? Is that the one who was asked about a data dump?
Yeah, sorry, I had to find the mute button.
No worries.
Looking for the 66.
Okay, so Brian, you got your pen handy? I'm going to extend an offer Brian made, and maybe he'll
Yep.
be upset with me. I doubt it. But Brian is the managing member of Test Geek Exam Prep LLC, and Thomas, he made an offer last night to give people what he calls his cheat sheet. I don't like that he calls it a cheat sheet because I'm always afraid somebody's going to accidentally leave it an exam site or something. So I call it a data dump, but he calls it a cheat sheet. He's got a really good cheat sheet on persons, broker dealers. And if you send him an email at Brian at Test Geek Exam Prep, I think it's LLC, I think, say, hey, I'd like to accept your cheat sheet offer and see if he'll send that to you. I'm pretty sure he will. Very helpful, I think. What I do is I'm tutoring, and if I'm using that, I tell people, well, let's go to these boxes and see who you are, your firm is. That is one thing I would add on NASA exams. It's very important to know the cast of characters, if you will. So, when I go to see a play, I always like it when they give me a playbill. And the playbill, they tell me the cast of characters. And I love a playbill that tells me, it gives me a synopsis of the acts and the scenes. And if I get lost, I kind of go, okay, who's that guy again? Oh, yeah, Iago, he's a bad guy. I think taking an NASA exam is kind of like that. And what I mean is, in the cast of characters, I like to read it once and say, okay, what cast member is this question about? Is this about a broker dealer? Is this about an agent of a broker dealer? Is it about a security? Is it about a investment advisory? If investment advisory, federal estate? In these NASA exams, boy, they are more so than other exams, giant reading exams. And boy, you got to read carefully. So that's one thing I like to do on NASA exams is just make sure I'm clear about what cast member I'm being asked about. I just was working with somebody today, and it's easy to do. Good news, she's got her owner brain housing group. It's all up there now, but she's not delineating it. And she was asking about a federally covered broker dealer. And I said, well, you got a little bit of a mind meld there. There's no such thing as that. Broker dealers are much easier. No retail client, no office, no register. Period. Full stop. It's only that it gets messier is when you're being asked about an investment advisor because then state or federal and then investment advisor rep. So that'd be one thing. Taking this out on Friday, struggling a bit with hedging on options. Do you have any main points I should remember? I do, Kaylee, and hold on just a second. I'll get a whiteboard. I'm here to boost my confidence, taking the 7. Okay, well, Joy, this will be for you too then. I'm going to get a whiteboard here and we'll go over it. What would you prefer, Kaylee? Would you prefer I go over this with a slide presentation, or would you prefer I go over it with just a blank whiteboard? You have any preference?
Hello, can you hear me?
I can.
Whatever works, whatever's easiest for you.
Okay.
Maybe a slideshow?
Okay, let's do that.
Thank you.
Okay, now Dean's gonna have, I'm not very technically literate, so now I'm gonna have to go figure out how to do that. Okay, just give me a sec here. Do. There we go. Okay, options. Here we go. Okay, now let me see if I can find you guys again. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so on series 7, there are 9 option strategies you're held accountable for. And those 9 option strategies, the vast majority of the questions that you encounter option strategies on your series 7 are going to be the basics and a covered call. So it's the one area of your exam where you can't, get ahead of yourself. What I mean by getting ahead of yourself is you shouldn't be working with advanced option strategies until you get the stock, all the other stuff done. Now, Kaylee, the 2 basic players in options are speculators and hedgers. And what happens a lot of times is a lot of people get the speculative and not the hedging, or they get the hedging and not the speculative. So again, kind of what we were talking about that cast of characters earlier. The first thing you want to be able to do in options is identify the position. What am I looking at? Am I looking at stock plus an option? Because you can't let the option tail wag the stock dog. If I'm your registered option principal and I'm looking over the option agreement that you're submitting to me, I say, hey, Kaylee, is this person a speculator or a hedger? Are they coming to the options market to lay off risk on a stock position? Or are they just simply buying or selling volatility on the stock? Are they a speculator? Right, so that's important to know what kind of a player we are. Whenever we have stock, the stock dominates. You can't let the option tail wag the stock dog. And hedging isn't about what if I'm right. Hedging is about what if I'm wrong. Right? So when I buy Apple, for example, I'm not buying Apple because I think it's going down. I think Apple's going up and I'm a bull, or I wouldn't be buying Apple. But hedging again is what if I'm wrong and Apple goes down. So that's what we mean by opposite market direction. So that alone means we're going to have a 50-50. Because I know that if I have a long stock position, I'm either going to buy a put, have a choice to sell the stock I own, or I'm going to sell a call to generate additional income. The email for Brian, I think, is Brian at Test Geek Exam Prep LLC, but you can find him on the web. Yeah, oh, there we go. I think that's it, Joy, but there might be an LLC after Test Geek Exam Prep, but I don't think so. I'll look it up before we call it.
There isn't. What I typed in there is correct. I confirmed it.
Okay, thank you. All right, so the other thing that gives you 50-50 is, are they asking about protection in the question? Because we should know protection you're going to buy, right? I think of this as insurance, right? You pay a premium for insurance. You don't buy insurance because you plan on wrecking, right? You buy insurance just in case, right? That's what insurance is about. And we should know that if income we're going to sell. Okay, so here's an example of a test. Page 104 is just when I'm teaching this class, Kaylee. This is where you would find this in your what we call your class notebook. So here we buy 100 shares of ABC at 40. And we buy one ABC 35 put at 3. Now, if you are very good at contract specifications, and what I mean by that, Kaylee, is you're not fumbling around that when you look at that, buy the put, or long the put, or owner of the put, or holder of the put, you're not fumbling around that that's a choice to sell the stock at the strike price. And you can track money in and out. You're going to be in pretty good shape. You're not going to have to memorize a bunch of stuff. I think of options as being about floors and ceilings. And so here what I'm doing is I'm putting in a floor at 35. I'm doing construction. I'm doing construction. Now there's a lot of ways to go, and I think the first thing you probably want to do when you get stock plus an option is maybe just get that break even right out of the gate. And that's a good thing that's different too. And Kaylee, people who say, oh man, put down. We spend all this time saying strike price, less premium, put down. But here, when you have a protective put, buy, you're going to add, right? So when you have the same action, buy, or sell, you're going to add. If you have different action, buy, sell, you're going to net. And so the first thing we probably want to do is get our break even. We paid 40 for the stock. Break even is always expressed. Break even is always expressed on a per share basis, right? So, I don't tell you you're up like a gazillion dollars. I say, I tell Larry Ellison you're up to 12 points on Oracle today. And he goes, well, what's that mean? I go, you figure it out. I probably wouldn't tell that to him, but you're right. 2 billion shares and you're up 12 points. What's he up? $50 billion today or some crazy thing? All right. So 40 for the stock, 3 points for the protection. Test question number 1, the break even is 43. Once I get my break even, by the way, if you get good at tracking money, you could say, boom. Break even is the same dollars out as in. So the advantage of doing the T, firing up the T and tracking the money, is it does make the thing a little more transparent about where the break even is. I could shop my answer set on the test and know it's got to be a number that if I plug it in there would make the columns balanced, because that's what break even is. Same dollars out as dollars in. But, the break even is also important because it's a good pivot. What I mean by a pivot is I get that break even, and then I can determine whether I'm bullish or bearish. So there's my break even, right? There's my strike price. And I can say, okay, well, if I'm bullish, let me put that in there. And now I know that anything above 43, I'm a winner. Right? And that's kind of helpful because now, if we want, we can kind of compare whatever they tell me on the test. It's here. That's going to be a gain. 45, for example. 42 is going to be a 1-point loss. So that break even is also helpful for us to kind of establish that. Now, I told you what I think of what Dean thinks is intestable, but I think of options as being about floors and ceilings. There is no ceiling here, right? Maximum gain. You don't have to sell if you don't want to. So, we're out $40 for the stock. We're out 3 points for the protection, right? We don't have to sell. And I've, Kaylee, had customers who drive me nuts. The stock goes to 50 or 60 or 70, and they go, hey, I didn't need the protective put. I go, well, yeah, it's kind of like saying you didn't wreck your car, so you wasted your money on the insurance. Right? You don't have to sell the stock if you don't want to. Your gain is still unlimited. Right? So, the whole thing about a put in terms of suitability is, you get to participate in a big price increase because there is no ceiling. There is no ceiling, but you don't participate in a big price decline. Right? So maximum gain is still unlimited. This is why you do it, the max loss. The max loss. Anytime we want, we can sell our stock at 35. Right? It looks like I put 40 as a strike price. My strike price is 35. My bad. Boom. Let's get rid of that. And so that's when my insurance kicks in. My insurance kicks in at 35. Boom. And, I always like, if you're using a T, I like to put a little arrow saying, okay, boom, I can sell the stock at 35. Now, again, I think the thing that Kaylee, some people get hung up on is there's a lot of ways to express this, right? You can tell me on the test, this is an 8-point loss, 40 to 35 in the 3. Another way we can think of it, a lot of ways to think about it, is our break even is 43. and would sell the stock at 35. So lots of ways to think about it. I think the main testable point here is, why do you buy a put on stocks that you own? You buy a put on stocks you own to participate in a big price increase, but not participate in a big price decline. The foundation of Mark Cuban's fortune is selling broadcast.com to Yahoo for over $1 billion in Yahoo stock. And when he accepted that stock, it was over $100 a share. And Cuban decided to add or buy some insurance. So he paid a premium insurance. You pay premiums for insurance. And he established the choice to sell every share of Yahoo he owned at 95. In 2010, when the puts expired, Yahoo was $20. My question for you is Mark going to sell his Yahoo in the open market at 20, or is he going to exercise his 95 puts? Is he going to take care of, he's going to file a claim using his insurance? What say you? Mark is going to stick it to people at 95, or he's going to sell it at 20? What do you think he's going to do? He exercised the puts. And then that year he paid $200 million in capital gains tax. Right? Woo! Right? Smart guy. He protected the gain. Right? He protected it. That's what he did. He hedged. He put on a full hedge. And then he exercised. Now, by the way, he wouldn't have exercised it if 2010, the Yahoo was, 110, the puts would have just expired worthless. Okay, so you asked about hedging option strategies. This is one. The one you're more often going to see is this next one. You could get 2, 3, 4 of these on your test, and this is called a covered call or a buy right. A covered call or a buy right. Your customer buys 100 shares of ABC at 40 and writes one ABC 45 call. Now, I'm not so sure I should put out negative vibes. But Kaylee, a lot of times when people get hung up on this, it's because they don't recognize the stock position as dominating. Say, oh yeah, Dean, I know, 45 call plus 7, 52. I want it to be 45 or lower. I want it to expire. It's a naked call. It has unlimited risk. No, no, no. Kind of like in the previous one. A lot of people get hung up here because, again, they don't recognize the stock position dominates. And say, oh yeah, Dean, 35 put, 35 minus 3, 32. No, and so that's why it's so important that you recognize the stock position. Okay, so again, I would wish for you that you are not fumbling around with contract specifications. You have 2 types of contracts, calls and puts. You can either buy them or sell them. And I told you, when we have a buy, same action, we're going to add to get the break even. Right? So buy, 40 plus 3. I always think of Little Caesars, pizza. Right?
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
So if it's buy and buy, you're adding, and if
Always.
it's
Or sell,
and
same action.
sell, it's adding as well.
Yep.
Okay, and then are
So-
you adding to the original stock price or the
Yeah,
or
no,
the
but yeah, be careful. When you did it, don't fall for where the market's at. Right? It's what you did the trade, not where the market's at, where you did the trade. So here we're doing another one, right? So now as I told you, we're buying and selling. And again, that's a challenge because it's like learning a foreign language. But that buy right. So remember what I told you? If we have different action, same action, buy, we added 40 plus 3 previously. Or sell, we'd still add. If we have different action, buy, sell, we're going to net. So this is a buy, sell, right? We got money out, but we got money coming in. Now, as I told you, what I wish for you is that you're looking at this and knowing that this is an obligation to sell the stock at the strike price. I would hope that you're not fumbling around with that. Contract specification. If you're good at contract specification, comes with work. and you can track money, you're in pretty good shape. And again, not testable what Dean thinks, not testable what Dean thinks, but I think of options as floors and ceilings. And I'm putting in a ceiling here at 45. I say, Kaylee, how would you like to agree to sell high, stock you just bought low? Somebody will pay you several $100s in advance to agree to sell at 45, stock you just bought at 40. Now, this is called a covered call because we're actually agreeing to sell stock we own. I said, we have three sources of profit here, Kaylee. One source of profit is the 40 to the 45. We can make 5 points or 500 there. Another source of potential profit is the $700, the premium. That's ours to keep. And we get any dividends along the way. If ABC pays dividends, that's going to be our money as well. All right, now, if you get good at this, and this is the challenge as well, if you go down the memory road, there's two ways to attack these option strategies. One is to memorize stuff. And I would warn you that if you go down the memory road, that the stuff you're going to have to memorize is going to continue to compound. You're going to have more and more stuff. I would think that if you can understand it, that would be better. Because then you don't need to memorize a lot of stuff. You can fire up a T. You got contract specifications. And then you're going to dream of getting 125 options because there's really no way to kind of trick you. All right, so let's try this thing about buy, sell. Is that 40 money out or is that money in? Is the 40 money out or money in? Yeah, that's
Out.
money, right? And we said when we have different action, buy, sell, we're going to net, right? And we said the break even is the number that makes the columns balance because that's what break even is, same dollars out as dollars in. So please know we actually did get some price decline protection here because we can actually have the stock go down a little bit and we're still okay. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. This is the one time and the one time only. It is not call up. Right? So the puts, when you have the put in the stock, it's the one time it's not put down. And here it's not call up because remember the stock dominates. You got to stay focused on the stock. Right? That's what's dominating this thing. The disadvantage of a covered call, is you don't participate past the strike price. You don't participate past the strike price. You have to give up that stock at 45. Now, again, there's a lot of ways to think about the break even, or this gain here. One thing you can do is simply, again, say, okay, I'm going to net this thing to get my break even of 33. Right? How'd I get that? I just netted that. And then I said the other thing you could do is say, okay, I'm bullish. I want it above that. And I say, okay, well, that means the stock can only go to 45 because then I don't participate anymore. So that's one way to get to the 12-point gain. Another way to get to 12-point gain is to simply plug in your numbers into your T and say, okay, well, if I sell that stock at 45, I don't get to sell it for any more than 45. If I didn't want to sell it at 45, I shouldn't, have done this. I used to send every one of my customers who did a covered call a big boy or big girl letter and say, do you understand if you get exercise, you're going to be delivering the stock at the strike price? The reason that's important is because if the stock is 50 or 60 or 70, you don't participate. Right? So there's a couple ways you can get the break even in a covered call. One way, Kaylee, is simply to memorize the break even 33 and know it's the break even to the strike price. That's one way to do it. Boom. You get your break even and then you make your little arrow. Another way to do it is to track the money and say, okay, well, if I get exercise, the stock gets called away. That's what that looks like. Here is a ceiling, but there is no floor. So I'd be afraid if the stock goes down. Stock goes down, now I got a problem, right? How far down could the stock go? How far down could the stock go? Do stocks go to -5? No, they only go to what? 0. And now I say, Kaylee, we're out of pocket 33. And if the stock goes to 0, we're going to lose 33 points. You could think of that as break even. You could think of that as break even to 0. Whatever floats your boat. Whatever floats your boat. All right, let's try a couple practice questions. What would give you the most protection? Key word, protection. Once we hear protection, we should know it's either A or C. Everybody agree that's A or C?
Yeah.
So I've got a 50-50. All right, you're always interested in the offset. So if you've already bought the stock, you want to be able to sell the stock. That's what we mean by offset, right? So if you're long the stock, I say, hey, Kaylee, why don't we establish the choice to sell that stock at the strike price? I know you're saying, Dean, get over it. I'm still upset with this guy. What is it, 40 years later? We got really lucky. We bought the stock at 90. The stock went to 180. And I called the doctor and I said, doctor, why don't we put in a hedge? Why don't we establish the choice to sell the stock we bought at 90 for 175? The puts are really cheap right now because the stock is roaring. I could get a 175 put for a premium of 4, 90 plus 4. Your break even's 94, and you would have a guaranteed profit. Yes, well, I thought you're not allowed to use the word guarantee. I said, I'm not. So when I can, I love to use it. I'm not guaranteeing anything. It's the hedge that does that. He said, Dean, do you get a commission? I wasn't even thinking about my commission. I said, well, yeah. He goes, Dean, if it expires worthless, we wasted our money. I go, yeah, that's true too. And anyways, it was fun because he didn't do it. And there every day it went past 175. I got to call him and say, hey, if you had that long put, everything would still be bueno. Right? So we had C. Everybody agree at C? Let's look at our next one. Generate income. The minute you hear income, you should know it's got to be B or D, right? Because income means you're selling the option. And again, remember, you're interested in the offset, the opposite market direction. So if you already own the stock, you'd be interested in selling the stock, and that would be a short call. All right, so remember this. I'm not going to do the rest of these because I don't think it's important. The only question here is this doesn't have unlimited risk. But remember, we did say one of the things I wanted you to take away from this little discussion is this idea of different action or same action. So is this different action or is this the same action? Let's see, we got to sell and we got to buy. So is that same action or different action? Is it buy? Yeah, so remember we said if it's different action, you're going to net the numbers, right? 40 minus 3. The break even here is 33. Right? So if it's the same action, so here we got 40 from selling the borrowed stock. We paid out 3. And there's our break even of 37. All right, let's try another one. Short. Same action or different action?
Same.
So what do we do if it's the same action?
Add.
Yeah. Right. And that the reason I'm not going to do this with you, this is recognition. I don't think you have to do it, but this is not a smart bear. If you watch any of my videos, I always say be a smart bear. There's a smart bear. A smart bear puts in that ceiling at 45. This is a dumb bear. Because to hedge the position, you don't want to have an obligation, you want to have a choice. And again, I told you this is recognition. So that when you see most protection, it's got to be either A or C because protection costs money. Right? So it's going to be either a long call or a long put. Here you want to put in a ceiling. You want to establish the choice to buy back the borrowed stock at a set price, and that's a long call. All right, so I hope that was helpful for you. It's a little more
Thank
than
you
a
so
Q&A.
much.
Oh, you're welcome. That's a little more than a jam session there. Usually people bring up QIDs. We don't actually start lecturing, but hey. All right, let's see what else we got in there. I missed, Jillian, I missed the 65 by a margin amount. 65, I take some heat from this, but I think 65 is one of the toughest exams. And I think it's tough for the same reason as 66, but a lot of people taking the 65 don't have the background that you might have if you just took a 7. So I think it's really a bear of an exam. January's busy, got off course. Which of your classes would you recommend to get back on track? I don't actually teach an organized 65 class. I do teach an organized collaborative class with Kaplan for the 66. But Jillian, I'll keep you in mind. Sometimes Kaplan calls me and asks me to fill in if they got a person. So I don't actually have an organized class that I teach for the 65. I do have tutoring replays and I do have lots of content for the 65, but I just don't have an organized class for that. I would reverse engineer your study plan by whenever you plan on taking the exam. So 65, let's say you're saying March, I think you should allocate 60 to 90 hours and then play it by ear that first week to see if you need to expand or collapse, whatever that timeline is. So I believe in reverse engineering your study plan from a test date. I did all of Kaplan's Q banks. Ugh. Yeah, I do because sometimes, Joy, a different voice can be helpful. And kudos to you. I told you very rarely do people do everything they were asked to do and they miss the mark. It happens on 66. So I would like a different voice. So whether that's STC, that would be my recommendation, or Notman. I would get a different some different questions for you to look at. I told you there's Thomas, the 66 and 65. I don't have any memory aids. There's a couple like late lawyers, accountants, teachers, engineers, but it's more of a slog than the 7 or the SIE because we have all kinds of memory aid devices for you. Well, I'm glad you find them helpful. I'm glad you found the videos helpful. All right, anything before we log off from this Q&A jam session?
I do have a quick QID, and it's just a clarity because it drove me
All
crazy.
right, hold on. Let me go get the Kaplan Q bank. Is it a Kaplan question?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Okay, let me go get the Kaplan Q bank.
I ran it by numerous advisors, senior advisors at our firm, and everybody selected the same answer I did. So I'm just curious.
Well, sometimes Chuck Lowenstein is the guy at Kaplan, and he does have what I call gotcha questions every now and then. So you thought, so
Yeah.
let me just get the Kaplan Q bank here. God, where is the Kaplan Q bank? Come on, Dean. There it is. Okay, hold on. Just take a minute to bring it up. It's 66, Thomas?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and then I'll put it on the screen as soon as I bring it up. I told you I'm off grid and I'm using my Starlink, and Starlink is usually pretty good. Let me see. I'm a Starlink. I have 2 systems here. Yep. It could be Kaplan and not Starlink. Come on, baby. Loading, loading, loading. Sometimes Kaplan does have where their site. Oh, there we go. And, I think that's so frustrating. I'm studying. I'm trying to get on the Kaplan site and. Okay, loading, loading, loading. 66. We want to go to study tools. QBank. Okay, so what is that QID number?
It is 1520860.
Okay, now let me go find you guys and bring it up. Boom, boom, boom. Can you guys see my screen?
It's loading. There you go.
Your client has $10,000 to invest today. Okay, so, if I'm an asset test taker, I'm thinking, that sounds like present value. And expects to earn an after-tax return of 8 to send his call to college 12 years. And so it sounds like I don't know. These are questions I like to kind of say, okay, what do I think it's heading? It looks like they're going to be asking about future value. So I have present value. I have the number of compounding periods, which is 12. I have the rate of return of 8. Which of the following is needed to determine whether the investment is likely to satisfy the client's goal? Well, we have present value. That's out. They told me after-tax return, so I don't need to do anything with the tax bracket. So it looks like I would have got this to a 50-50 and been either concerned about inflation or what is the future value we need, right? So I would have said A. Why did they not say A?
So personally, I chose the option D on this instance, just because if you give me, you want me to go to the market and get you an 8% rate of return. You have a fixed.
Slow down, Thomas. After tax, it tells you that this is after you paid your taxes. It says after tax return. That means we've already factored in the 8 that you're paying taxes. If I
So
say,
this is
what's your after tax return? And you tell me 8, that means maybe you got 10 or 11, but you took it down to 8 because you had to pay your taxes. Are we clear? Does that not make sense?
I don't know if I'm getting in my own way of
I think you
making sense of all of this
I
because
think
I
you are
mean,
getting your own way. I think this is where you're outsmarting yourself. Sometimes it's most of the time it's a blessing to have the brain power to outsmart yourself, but not on this test, right? So I disagree with your advisors there. I mean, to me, by the way, just as a test taker in general, I'm kind of being a jerk a little bit. But the minute we hear $10,000 today, we should be thinking present value, right? Today. And then we should almost go, okay, I bet this is going to be some future value kind of thing. So we need to know how much money we're going to need in the future. And so now we say, okay, if we can get 8% and how much money we're going to have in 12 years, and that number is either going to be more or less than what we need, right? So I kind of understand what you're saying, but the key word is after tax. They've told you this return has already been netted of the taxes.
I guess my whole thought process is how am I supposed to go find something that's an after tax yield of 8% if I
Well,
don't know?
listen. This is for all of us. Whether it's Kaylee, Joy, Thomas, Jillian, all of you are in the series exam fantasy land. 7 or SIE, or your case, Thomas 66. And it sounds like, yes, you brought the real world into the fantasy land. There is nothing in this about the real world and getting an 8% return. If they tell you 8% on the test, you say, oh man, I don't think you could do it. I give them this question too, like, oh, where are we going to get that? Historically, the stock market has done close to that. But yeah, your point, good news, when you guys pass, you get to leave your series exam fantasy land. I'm stuck here permanently. No wonder I'm demented. I never get to leave. Right. So yeah, I think there you did bring in some extra stuff into this question. I mean, the question it stands, and I told you, guy Kaplan does this guy named Chuck. There's the present value. There's my rate of return. There's my number of compounding periods. And so now I need to know what is the client's goal, because what I'm going to calculate is the future value, right? That's what I'm going to do when I do that. And that'll either be enough to pay for the college or not, but I need to know what the college cost is, right? So I'm going to I don't usually take Chuck Lowenstein. He's the subject matter expert at Kaplan. And I don't usually take his side in a controversy like this. But on this one, I'm with Chuck. I'm with Chuck on this one.
You made me feel better about that. I appreciate it.
You bet. Anything else? Okay. Best of luck Friday, Kaylee. Right on. We're sending good testing vibes. All right, everybody. I got to get to our book club meeting. So I'll see you for the next. Usually, if I don't have one up, when I get through with the one, I either today or tomorrow morning, I put up the next one. So I don't know if it's up there not yet or not, but I'll check either today or tomorrow morning. And it'll be next Wednesday. And I'll see you then. If you have an explication request, Thomas, you can just send that QID to me at explication request. Give me the QID number at guruexamprep.com. And just, Thomas, if you send me a QID like that, please tell me what exam you are. Every once in a while somebody sends me a QID, they don't tell me if it's a 6 or a 7 or, I got to know what exam
Dean,
it's coming from.
Dean, I got one more question for you. Do you think I should do a one-on-one tutoring session just on the laws and regulations? Because I
don't know. Why don't you watch? I think I have a couple replays up. Why don't you watch the replays and make that decision? When's your new test date?
Well, it's gonna be 30 days from now, so
Yeah, I think
don't have it scheduled.
Why don't you join? Stay plugged in with the community on the jam sessions and live streams. And I don't think we need to make that decision now. I think you could watch some tutoring plays, you can do some more work, and then we can always do it. I would rather tutor too, by the way. I like to tutor like 7, 10 days out. I don't want to tutor so early in your study plan that, we forget it by the time we get there. But Joey, do make a dean to-do list of anything, I'm on your team and make your dean to-do list, and whether you book tutoring or not, bring that list here, or, you can book tutoring, we could take care of it then. But, you got a lot of free resources between now and booking tutoring.
Oh, I know when you're doing more replays or
Yeah, yeah, and then
videos like this.
yeah. So, well, I do this once a week. So once a week, we did a little more than we usually do for Kaylee. I don't usually grab a whiteboard and start, doing that kind of depth. But hey, this depends on what's going on. Yeah. So just know that that's available to you. Joy, if you are plugged in, I get really booked, and so for people already that I know and I'm talking to, I'll find a spot for you if I'm booked. So I have enough business almost on referral to not. I'm booked. Sometimes people want tutoring and there's no tutoring sessions available between now and their test time. 30 days out, though, I think we'll find a spot for you if we don't have one available.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank
Anything
you.
else? All right, everybody. See you next time. Bye bye. Remember, inch by inch, your exam's a cinch. Yard by yard, your exam is hard. See you next Wednesday.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Dean.
You bet.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Jillian, I'm sorry you're not a member of the Kohler family. You're just going to make your own fortune on your own. But if you're poor and you deserve to be rich, the securities industry is a great place to be. A great place to be.